You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project. Join us as we talk with artists, leaders, and change makers about heritage, hope, culture, and transformation as we celebrate the voices and traditions that shape Appalachia and inspire us all. Today, our guest is Seth Long, Executive Director of Housing-Oriented Ministries Established for Service, Inc., or H.O.M.E.S, Inc. This ministry provides affordable and efficient housing solutions to distressed communities in Eastern Kentucky through new construction, home repair, solar system installations, and rental opportunities. Seth has led transformative housing initiatives, developed hundreds of home buying opportunities, and championed sustainability through solar energy projects. Join us as we delve into his journey from southeastern Pennsylvania to the mountains of Kentucky, his passion for community development, and the sweet story behind South Down Farms Kentucky maple syrup. Hi, Seth. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Tina. It's good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation this morning. So I know you've been with H.O.M.E.S, Inc. since 1991, and you've been the executive director since 2008. So can you tell our audience what initially drew you and your wife to Letcher County, Kentucky, and what made you decide to stay?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we came to Letcher County with Mennonite Central Committee and their home repair program. I was working on a custom home building crew, doing everything from the footing to the finish. And in that, I remembered a time in my youth when we went to Harlan, Kentucky and helped a homeowner install a first-time bathroom in their home. A very rewarding work, meant a lot to me. And we had the ability one summer to go and help people with their housing needs. And we just thought it would be a good thing to do. But we're still here. So that summer turned into 34 years or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just came as a volunteer and said, I feel like we hear that a lot for people who have a passion for Eastern Kentucky. You come for thinking you're going to do this one thing, and then God has a different plan. And
that's exactly right. Doors opened up. One of the things that really kind of kept us here early on was foster care. We saw children that needed homes, and we have had 15 foster children in and through our homes, not at the same time, but over the years. And that was one of the things, because then we were able to adopt 3 children as special needs foster children through that. So, yeah.
Yeah, God always has a plan.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about the housing landscape in East Kentucky right now and how it has evolved since you started your work here over 30 years ago as a volunteer.
Yeah, one of the ways I think about housing here during my tenure when I've been here is, we have a broken housing market here. It does not function like it does in many places in America. It's so different in so many ways. And over the years, we've been able to do a lot of good, building about 300 houses before the flood of 2022. The flood of 2022 splits time in two for us in so many different ways. But before the flood, it was like the problems around housing were so large, the investments were so little, that it creates this, we can't do anything about this in our community. And while we were doing good work, we were doing it one at a time. A house up that holler, a house over there, over in that county. And always buying raw property and developing the property, which is hard and risky work to do. But we were building houses one at a time. But that, even though there was a lot of houses over a 30-year period, it didn't move the needle. And it was almost like, in some ways, the community appreciated our work, but didn't elevate it or really didn't lift it up. And it was only until the flood came and changed everything about this community that housing got the infusion of investment that it needed and became the priority that local leaders and everybody knew that we had to do something with this. But in a nutshell, that's kind of the landscape of where we're at. One of the ways I try to help people that aren't from here understand the severity of the broken housing market is I'll say that we're the only developer of housing in the county. That's a foreign concept to many folks across America because overbuilding is a problem and expensive houses are the problem. But here in our counties, the housing doesn't appraise for enough to cover the cost of materials and labor, let alone a for-profit builder to make money. So they can't even function in this environment because they can't get the value out of the home. And when I say we are the only developer of housing, what I mean by that is we are the only ones that are able to buy raw property, take the risk, and invest the capital into that property and build a home and sell it. There's lots of carpenters here. And if you own a property and you want somebody to build a home, you can get that house built, but that's not a comparable sale. It doesn't help the market. And that's how I'm thinking about that in the context of the broken housing market.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you got involved with H.O.M.E.S, Inc. And like I said, you moved up to executive director. Like, what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so all the way back in 1991, I started as a volunteer with H.O.M.E.S. I volunteered for 4 years. And after that, they started paying me to do what I was doing. And I was managing the construction. In 2008, I became the director of H.O.M.E.S Incorporated. We weren't in a good position in those years when I took the reins there. So it's been quite a rebuilding project for us here at H.O.M.E.S. But up until the flood, we had gotten things straightened out and making progress moving forward. It took probably almost a decade to fix the problems that had accumulated.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Did you know on this Giving Tuesday, families in need in Appalachia are counting on you? Don't miss this opportunity to provide nutritious food, warm clothing, critical home repairs, and Christ's love to people living in unimaginable poverty. Visit christianapp.org to give today to help children, families, and seniors in need.
Can you talk a little bit about how devastating that the floods were in July 2022 and how it shaped some of your recent housing initiatives?
Yeah, so the flood, when I think about it and the impact to the community, it's just incomprehensible to think that 17 inches of rain fell on this mountain community. There were like 20 counties that were impacted by this flood. Mass devastation. 6,000 homes were ruined, like people had to be displaced from those homes. Many did not go back into the homes, so we're already in a housing crisis. The flood hits, displacing a lot of people. It was overwhelming because it wasn't like, oh, that river flooded. It was 17 counties or 20 counties worth of severe flooding. So the impact was large and it was great. It was bigger than us. And if it wouldn't have been for the help of foundations and private investment, donations and things coming to us in the early days, it could have very well crushed us under the weight of need that was around us. But there were some people that heard and they saw the devastation and they said, H.O.M.E.S is a community housing developer right in the middle of this flooding. And there were other ones too, like Housing Development Alliance and others too. And we need them to come out of this flooding event strong because these communities need their services. With all that flooding, it's often oversimplified, the problems that we face. And, people say, well, why don't people just move out of the floodplain? Well,
Yeah.
if you're in Letcher County, the reason, one of the chief reasons we haven't built more houses is because where do you build them? We have never built a house in the floodplain. It's always without. But in this flood, 80% of the houses that were flooded were not in the floodplain. So even if you did build out, the water got so large and went well beyond any kind of established floodplain. So the floodplain really wasn't the issue. When we think about flood insurance, if you don't live in the floodplain, you don't buy flood insurance. So
Right.
many people didn't have. And then the other hurdle here, we're in an area of persistent poverty. Flood insurance is expensive. So it's one of the things that people let go and they don't get when they could in other areas. So it was a real problem facing that in the flood, but it was then all hands on deck for our crews. Everything went into recovery mode, from mucking out, drying out houses. And then we started thinking about the flood mitigation. There was a lot of folks that came through organizations into town, well-meaning volunteers, well-meaning groups to help people, but there was very little done to mitigate future flooding events.
Yeah.
And that's really where our heart was, because we were here before the flood. We're going to be here after the flood. We'll be here when the next flood hits. And we wanted to put as much as we could into making sure that people could have a home that would not be flooded again. So one of the things that we did is elevated a lot of homes. In some cases, we raised and moved homes. And we started building a lot of new homes, because all of a sudden, these higher ground projects started popping up where the government was involved with developing higher ground properties, these subdivisions where houses could be built on abandoned strip mines, and everything engineered so that it would make the houses safe. They wouldn't settle. The infrastructure brought to the sites, the water, the sewer, the roads built, the curbs, the sidewalks, the electrical, the communications put in, all that was being done. And that's when we really started production style building homes for the first time in our whole career. And that's been a pretty special thing for us.
Yeah, I think that's so informative for people, because we've done a lot of stories about the flood of 2022 and recovery and how long it takes. And often, I would say 9 times people say, why don't they, exactly what you said, why don't they move and why do they live in the floodplain? And you keep trying to explain to people what the situation was like on the ground. I remember we just recently went out to someone's house. She had a creek behind her house. It's not the creek that flooded for her house. It was whatever the development of the river and the waterways up above her home. And so I'm like, it wouldn't have mattered if she had moved. It wasn't the creek like that she lived. And so just trying to explain to people what the situation was like on the ground. I think you did a really great job of putting some context to that.
Yeah, I think of one person that we helped along the way. She was flooded, again, not by the creek, but the road. I mean, the water coming off the mountain down the middle of the road flooded her. It wasn't river flooding, but she lived in a 100-year-old camp house. She had disabilities, could not use the second floor of her house. Had a heat pump installed. We had worked on her house a couple times over the 30 years that I've been here. But she literally lived in one room in that house in the wintertime, had blankets up because she couldn't afford to turn her heat pump on the winter. And what we were able to do is tear that house down, build her a new net zero, handicapped accessible 2-bedroom house where her electric bills are less than $22 a month.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's some of the really neat stuff that's coming out of the flood. I like to say sometimes the flood of 22 was the best thing that happened to us in this community. It's a terribly tragic event. Many people lost lives. People lost property. Some people lost everything they had. But moving forward, there's a $298 million investment from CBDG disaster relief funds coming to the region. And with that, we hope to do much good.
Awesome. That's a good, in terms of how do you do things around sustainability and changing, because things like that, like the impact on electric bills and all of those things have an impact as well when people are really just trying to put food on the table and have enough money to make it to the end of the month. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the solar initiative that you all have done and what inspired you all to move towards sustainability, and how is it being received in the community?
Yeah, so in 2019, we started, we were experiencing a lot of problems ourselves with the rising costs of electricity. I'll start off by saying about our solar endeavors. I was a skeptic. I didn't think it would work. I thought they did in California, not enough sunlight here, whatever. Or maybe that it took so much subsidy that it really wasn't worth it. But in 2019, the electric bill for our office was going north of $1,600 a month. And I
Wow.
was like, this isn't sustainable. Nobody pays our electric bill. It comes right off the top. We've got to do something because the collapse of the coal industry has had drastic impacts on the cost of electricity in this region. We used to enjoy very, very low electrical rates. Now they're amongst some of the highest in the country. And there's another rate increase on the table today. In one 5-year period, we had 3 significant rate increases. So we're trying to keep ahead of that. And just, looking at it, we thought it might be worth investing $70,000 to put a solar system on a roof to reduce our energy bills. And seeing is believing.
Yeah.
The system performed better than was anticipated, and it cash flowed from day one, even though we didn't have a penny of grant money in it. We borrowed money, we amortized the loan. Even with the payment, we were way money ahead on what we saved. And it was like, wow, that's eye-opening. So I went from there, took my H.O.M.E.S hat off and put my farm hat on, my Southdown farm hat on. And our electric bill there was $350 a month, and I was able to myself, apart from H.O.M.E.S, install solar on my farm using some resources at the state Kentucky Department of Agriculture, some resources through USDA that helped offset that cost. But now my electric bills are $21.50 a month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I had 2 projects under my belt, and I was like, this community needs this service, not just in the way of homeowners, but small businesses that struggle are the lifeblood of these small rural communities, and they're struggling to pay these higher electrical bills.
Yeah.
So is there a way that we can create a social enterprise around solar design and construction to put people to work, to produce a product that creates a profit for us, and then we take that profit and roll it into mission, that social enterprise model. And that really gets me excited because those types of projects help us to be less dependent on government source funding, which while I'm thankful for it, when it's there, it always changes. So that was kind of like the onset of the solar. That was in 2019. We were just ready to launch, trying to do more residential solar. Mm-hmm. And the flood hit. So we took that line of business, and I like to say we put it on the shelf. We just took it and placed it over there because we needed all hands on deck with the flood recovery. And then a year later, we were able to pick it up, and we've been running with it. So what we had after the flood, we started building houses, and we also had this ability to design and install solar ourselves in the work that we do. So we say, can we build net zero rated housing? And if we can, how much does it cost and what can we learn? And so far to date, we've completed 13 of these net zero houses. We start with an energy efficient house, which then requires a smaller solar system. And we were surprised by how little it added to the costs, especially as we were doing it in-house. But the other thing that came out of it was a one-pager, a white paper that we did on solar-ready housing, realizing not every developer or nonprofit developer had a solar expertise or crew, but they could do 10 things with practically no cost in planning and design that would save thousands of dollars on a solar install down the road for that homeowner. So we developed that policy paper on solar ready housing that came out of that.
So not just for what you all could do, but what others could learn from what you all did and how they can begin to look at that as well as solutions.
Right. Exactly. When let's take the woman that we helped in the two-story camp house. She now lives in a net zero house. She lives on less than $1,200 a month. Boom. What does it mean to save $120 a month on electric bill for
Yeah.
somebody like that? That's 10% of her income.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah. Huge, huge, huge. So looking ahead, what are your hopes for Homes Inc. and the future of housing in Letcher County and the surrounding areas that you serve?
Yeah, so we're coming into the period, that federal investment that I mentioned a few moments ago, 298 million, half of that goes towards housing. In a way, it's just starting now to hit the ground. It doesn't all come to us naturally, but we put in applications for that. We're going to be really busy the next 5 years. I hope that we can get to the pace where we're building 30 homes a year, and our board and our staff is going through a strategic planning process, and they've set a goal that we build 150 net zero rated houses in the next 5 years. It's a bold, ambitious goal. It's a lot of work to do, but it's pretty exciting too to see what we can do with it. And I like to tell people you can do anything if you have money.
Look, so, and speaking of money and how do we get donors and folks to support, for folks who might be listening who are inspired by the work that you're talking about, how can people get involved in housing advocacy, even in their own communities? Like, where should people start if they're like, yeah, I'd like to be more interested, whether in Eastern Kentucky or there's someplace else in the listening area?
Yeah, well, one of the ways to support is, really investment. I think one of the things that many of the nonprofit developers lack is investment. If you look at what philanthropy has given to urban areas compared to rural areas per capita, it's way off pace and out of mark. So, that kind of thing, we can do anything if we have money. So that's one thing. But in your own communities, I think just being involved with housing or housing related issues, it's across the country too, right? Think about this statistic. I think it was in 1976, this country built 550 homes that were starter houses, beginning houses, smaller, basic houses, 550,000 of these in 76. You know how many we built in 22? We built less than 50,000 across the country.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
We have a housing crisis. And one of the reasons is, inflation, the cost, and where builders focus attention on is where they can make money. So they build bigger homes. But where do people coming out of college, trying to start families, where do they go? It's so hard. So becoming aware of these issues and the reason before them, becoming educated and supporting nonprofit work that really does help fill that gap of starter homes. And it's not all just about low-income housing either. I mean, moderate income folks entering the workforce are having a difficult time starting the houses. So that would be my encouragement.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Your generosity has a direct and positive impact in the lives of people in need in Appalachia every day. It is the unwavering support of faithful friends like you that make this work possible. Many of our supporters are beginning to plan and envision what kind of legacy they want to leave to support the causes that are near and dear to their hearts. CAP is happy to provide a safe and easy experience for people to create a will and support CAP through non-cash gifts. Through our partnership with Free Will, CAP offers our donors the ability to create a will online and alter it at no charge. Our partnership with Free Will also includes their Smart Giving Suite, which allows donors to give through their IRA, donor advised funds, and stock online, in addition to creating a will for free. In recent years, Appalachia has faced unrelenting challenges, including the pandemic, inflation, and back-to-back natural disasters. You can make a life-changing impact and leave a legacy of hope in Appalachia. To learn more about non-cash giving opportunities, please visit christianapp.org/more ways to give.
We're going to switch gears a little bit here. We talked about housing, but we also mentioned that you and your wife have a farm, Southdown Farms. So can you tell us a little bit about the farm and your family's Kentucky maple syrup operation?
This is what I do in my spare time.
Yeah.
We have a commercial maple syrup operation. We tapped 330 trees this past season, which was an excellent season for us. We bottled 50 gallons of maple syrup. And when we started, we knew nothing about, well, I shouldn't say nothing. We knew three things about maple syrup. We knew it was really expensive. We knew that it was really tasty, and we loved to eat it. And I knew I had maple trees. That's all I knew. I didn't come with this knowledge or anything. So we have 55 acres, and some of my thinking around this comes from my work and thinking about community development, thinking about latent assets. What do we have that we don't realize is an asset to us, but it's underused or overlooked? And when I looked at my property on 55 acres, it's been strip mined on 3 different coal seams, but there's maple trees all over it. And I'm thinking, well, I wonder what kind of value is in maple syrup production. And just started, one thing led to another. And next thing you know, we were on YouTube learning how to make this. The first year we just made maybe a half a cup, but it motivated us to make more, right? So that was kind of the launch into this, and we've grown to the 330 tree mark is where we're at today. And with my time limitations, with my full-time job, that's where we have to be for today. But we could do a lot more if we wanted to. One of the things I think about with the maple syrup production in Eastern Kentucky is we have a long history of making maple syrup in Letcher County. I didn't realize it. Nobody does, really. Yeah. But if you look back at the USDA agriculture census from 1850, it will demonstrate that we made 8,000 gallons of maple syrup in Letcher County in 1850. Yeah. Now that's translated. It was really maple sugar, but it took 8,000 gallons of syrup to make that maple sugar. The first time we made maple syrup to sell. We made enough to sell. I took it to the farmer's market, and this old guy came up to me, and he said, "Seth," he said, "did you make this here?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Right here in Letcher County?" I said, "You know where I live?" He said, "I remember when." And he went all the way back to when he was 8, 9 years old, and he was probably 85 at the time. And he said, "I remember when I helped Mommy and Daddy do this." He said, "But everybody around here was doing this." He said, "We were poor, sugar was rationed, so we made our own." They didn't make maple syrup for their pancakes and waffles. They made maple sugar. And he talked to me about how his mom would take that brown maple sugar and press it into a tin cup and put it in wax paper, wrap it up, and put it in lard cans. And that was a form of sugar that they'd use during the year. And I just thought, with that connection to the past, we have technology. I have a state-of-the-art evaporator. I have a sugar shack. I have a reverse osmosis unit that I run my sap through to get this down. I said, we could really take technology and create value on the property that we live on here. So one of the things that we do on our Kentucky Maple Syrup Day event on our farm, which we've had over 500 people attend, is try to tell them how we do this and why we do this. Because we really want people to see, if you ask somebody who owns acreage here what their property is worth, they say, it's just worthless hillside property. And I want to tell the story, there's value there that you're not seeing. It's worth more than the coal that's not going to be mined under that property anymore. Yeah. Maple syrup making isn't for everybody. I concede it's not for everybody. It's a lot of work, but it is a way that people can really supplement their income, especially if they're ag-centric anyway. If they're farming, what are you doing on a farm in January and February?
Right.
You're waiting. You're waiting for the lambs to be born, the calves to be born. You're waiting for things to warm up so you get in the fields. And you can literally turn sap into cash in 24 hours. Wow. And there's value in that. So we have, if I got a few moments, I'll just tell you a quick story here.
Sure.
We have a business plan for our farm. We go from 100 trees to 500 trees, and we grow $77,000 over 5 years. not eye-popping amount of money. You can't live on that, but not bad for a side hustle. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
approach it. And I tell this story when we're all the way up on top on the ridge. And then I ask, how many maple trees do you think are in Letcher and surrounding counties today that are 8 inches or bigger ready to be tapped? And it's a question I pose just to try to get people engaged. Most people don't have a clue. But according to the UK University of Kentucky Timber Stand survey, there are 6.9 million maple trees ready to be tapped today.
Oh my goodness.
So think about that in terms of scale. Here's our little operation, 500 trees, earning 77,000 over 5 years, and extrapolate that out. That's real value. And I hope that other people can catch that kind of vision and begin to think about making Kentucky maple syrup to better themselves and to be good stewards of the properties that we own. And, it's just, there's nothing better than being out in the woods in the wintertime when it's snowing and a sugar snow hits and you're making maple syrup. I just think it's the coolest thing ever.
So you mentioned a little bit about the hillside land. So your farm is known for its innovative use of steep hillside land through market gardening. Can you share how this method transformed your farming approach and what lessons you learned from that?
So my wife and I both come from farming backgrounds. So it's kind of in our blood, but you come to Eastern Kentucky and you have there's no real tillable acreage here. There's lots of hillsides, but there's no acreage. So when we came upon regenerative gardening methods where you could get a lot more production by treating and respecting the soil and helping it to be healthy. Big agriculture doesn't teach us that. It teaches us how to add, chemicals and, fertilizers that are man-made to our soils so we can just do the same thing every day. But there is a process called regenerative farming. We supported up to 30 families on less than 0.3 of an acre for 26 weeks with a huge amount of produce and plenty of produce for ourselves as well. And we were amazed by how much we could grow on such a little spot by using non-traditional methods.
So you all are showcasing Appalachia's strengths and possibilities that exist within the communities already. What do you wish more people understood about this region and its potential that sometimes gets lost in stereotypes and people making assumptions, those kind of things?
For one, there's no road rage here. I've lived here a long time and haven't experienced. Every time I go back to where I was raised, there's angry people on the roads everywhere. There are things about Appalachia that are just beautiful, and there's things that are not so beautiful too, right? It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think in my journey, it took me 10 years of thinking, banging my head against the wrong, thinking, what's wrong with these people? And then the next 10 years is like, what's wrong with me? and then it's like, after that, it's like, you know what? Don't fight this and take what's good and admirable and enjoy it and lift it up and work on the things that aren't so pretty and try to make them better. I think that's kind of been our journey here in Appalachia. The culture is definitely different. I think people don't recognize that. The worldview is different. The way people process and think about things are different. It's not bad. I come from a German heritage. And one story that I think of that kind of demonstrates this is, being Mennonite and having a work ethic. Efficiency was the top cultural priority. And when we went to a job, people paid us to get something done well and efficiently. And when I came down here and started working, and I would get out of the van on a job site and go right to work, people thought I was rude.
Yeah.
Because I didn't sit at the table in the morning and drink a cup of coffee and talk with them. Well, that's a pretty valuable lesson to learn. And I really appreciate that aspect of living here in Appalachia.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Seth, we are already at the end of our conversation today, and we always end with this question for our guests. The mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project, I'm sure you've heard it before, is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. when you think of those four words, hope, transformation, love, and service, which one do you think embodies the Appalachian spirit the most?
Well, I like, as a Christian, I think what I'm called to do is to love others as Christ has loved me. And he didn't love me because I had anything to offer. He loved me because he's gracious and kind and merciful. And we need to love others in that way. And I think the love of Christ, the gospel, is really what transforms culture and people. And that's really what kind of grounds me and centers me. So I hope with whatever we appreciate about the culture, that we can press on to serve him and to love him, and to appreciate and to make things better as we go along our way.
Awesome. Seth, it's been such a pleasure. I have loved hearing about your dedication to housing and sustainability and community development in Eastern Kentucky, as well as your family's work through your Southdown Farms. Folks can check that out on your website. I hope your story, I really do, I hope it encourages our listeners to explore ways that they can make a difference in their own community. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for allowing me to share. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Our guest today has been Seth Long. He is the Executive Director of Housing-Oriented Ministries Established for Service, Inc., or H.O.M.E.S, Inc., and he is the owner of Southdown Farms with his lovely wife. Thanks for listening, and we know that you can catch new episodes every Tuesday and invite your friends to listen too. You can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels and find the show at christianapp.org/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcast. You know the deal. If you like the show, please take a moment to click on that like button and follow the show and leave a review so it helps others find the show as well. We'll see you next week.